All right, Nicole, welcome back to Finance Month. We are continuing on with this very important topic. And today we're talking about managing cash flow so that, those are the two most important words here, so that you can pay yourself more. And I think that's one of the, why do I get into my numbers? Why do I care? It's important to understand the health of your business and all of these sorts of things. But we're not running charities here. We are excited that we get to do this incredible work, but we also need to be putting food on the table. We need to be getting compensated for the time and energy that we're pouring into these beautiful businesses that we are building. So managing cash flow so that you can pay yourself more is a big why behind why we look at our numbers, why we understand our numbers, and I guess how we actually pay ourselves more.
Yeah. I mean, it's so many of the spa numbers I look at, people are underpaid. They put themselves last in the business. And one of the first things I want people to do when we really dig in is figure out how we can be paying them more, because they deserve it and they need it and their families need it. And it's important.
I think there's this misconception where, in the world of startups, when you start to get into entrepreneurship, there's these like startups where there's no money, but then they're selling for this huge exit and you get millions of dollars. It's a completely different model than a spa. Some spas are going to sell for sure, but the majority of them, they're pulling their paycheck. And yes, you're creating this asset and yes, you're going to sell, but the majority of spas are not going to sell for $100 million, or like what these big tech companies are doing. So we need to be operating them as an asset for sure, as something with value that can be sold, but we need to be paying ourselves from the beginning.
Yes.
And, there's always moments where, we've got to build up our business savings. There's startup cost, et cetera. But we don't need to be a year in, 2 years in before we start pulling a paycheck.
Yeah. And for so many people that I talk to, they could have perfect separation of business and personal finances. But when you're a small business owner, there's so much that is still can be interdependent based on what's going on in your personal life, how much you need from your business. And so both components really kind of go into this, and being able to not let your personal life get out of control for the sake of your business, or vice versa, because it can go either way. So it is this balance of like supporting yourself in both areas of your life.
Yeah. And I think that, just to be crystal clear, there should be a very clear distinction between personal and business.
Yes.
We do not want to muddy those business accounts. We think you should have a separate business entity, all of those types of things. But there are, if you have a good CPA, a good financial advisor, there's a lot of ways that you can absorb legitimate expenses into your business. My cell phone that I use for business and for personal, but I use it for business primarily, is paid for through the company, right? If you have a home office, there's calculations that you can deduct X percent, based on the size of the office type of thing. So we want to look at those things to lower expenses on both sides. But it is just a practice in, it's like the opposite of instant gratification. And like in the world that we live in today, especially like same day delivery with Amazon, it's like we want things right now. And there's not this longer term kind of slow and steady wins the race type of thing. And I feel like that is so important in business, and just giving yourself a little time to grow, focusing on like, this is a marathon, not a sprint type of thing. And you will get there.
Yeah, I'm always about baby steps, one baby step, then another. They add up more than you think. And it makes it feel more manageable to take one little chunk of this on at a time.
So let's talk about YNAB. YNAB is You Need a Budget. People always ask what that is. It's a software. It's actually a personal finance software, but we use it in business, and we use it as a way to follow the Profit First methodology. That's from Mike Michalowicz. He is the author of Profit First. Great book. Check him out if you have not read that. In his book, he talks about, all these different bank accounts, which personally didn't work for me. I know there's thousands of people that he has helped, but everybody's brain works a little bit different. And with YNAB, Nicole, actually, that's how we came in, is because I hired Nicole as a coach to help me manage my finances in the business and on the personal side. And through the relationship with her, through her showing me how to operate in a profit first methodology, but do it in a software with fun emojis and make it, it felt lighter. I was able to significantly increase the amount of pay that I had. And the reason was we get our financial statements. Our CPAs are kind of looking backwards. Here's what happened last month, but you're getting it, 10 days to 2 weeks after.
And that's best case scenario. I feel like I've been talking to so many people lately who don't even get their statements in that time frame, which we're always working towards. But sometimes that is just not happening for people. So it's old information by the time you're getting that.
It's old information. And we're also like, okay, I have X amount in my bank account, but what's gone through and what hasn't gone through? I don't know if this bill is going to go or that bill is going to go, or, a lot of the softwares that we use, and I'm sure many of you listening, you pay for things on an annual basis because it gives you usually like about a 20% discount. And so if you have that discount, okay, great. But then all of a sudden, September, October, whatever rolls around, you've got this big lump sum payment. And that can, knock the wind out of you if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, the most common one I see in spa is like back bar orders or retail orders where people are doing big orders, maybe quarterly, just as an example. And so it's a big expense when it hits. And, it could just be that could throw your cash flow off for the month. If the previous 2 months where you didn't have that order, you were like, hey, things are going well, it feels really great. And then you have a big order or two that hit in 1 month. You're like, what happened? I feel like everything's different. And it's like, well, you had that's a normal business expense. But one of the things that we try to do in YNAB is turn everything into a monthly expense, even if it's not. So those 2 months where you don't have that order, you're putting money into that category, kind of saving up for that expense. So you have the money ready to go when that quarterly bill comes out. So that helps you smooth out those expenses, and it kind of helps you get off the roller coaster ride that can make you feel crazy. It can make you feel like you're doing something wrong, and you're not. It's just the timing of these expenses in your business. And then you couple some of those expenses with maybe a summer little dip in revenue, and they can combine really easily to make you feel like you're not doing well financially all of a sudden. Some of those things we can't predict and can't control, but there's a lot that we can. And so if we can take care of the things that we can predict and control, it just reduces the variables for surprises.
Yeah, I know for me, one that would always surprise me is my credit card fee. It's a once a year fee, and we have a business credit card that it's a pretty big, it's like a $600 a year fee. We make more than that back. It's absolutely worth it. But it's one of those things that's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that extra $600 on my credit card. And by breaking it down and paying, $50 a month, it's
you don't notice it.
You don't notice it. And so when that fee comes through, then it's like, oh, okay, there we go. That's what that is, or that's how I'm going to pay for that. So it really, you can see that when you're breaking this down by month. Well, maybe we should get into kind of what Profit First is for people that haven't really read that book. If you hadn't read the book, definitely recommend reading it. But the concept is that you pull the profit out of your revenue first, hence the title. So if you have the way that we're doing this in YNAB is it will connect to your bank account, it will connect to your credit card, and those transactions will automatically be kind of pulled into this software. And this software, by the way, is less than $100 a year. It is not a super expensive software that you need to invest in. And so let's say that you have $5,000 come in, and you're going to take that $5,000 and you're going to divide it into different percentages. Now, the percentages that we recommend for SPA are 40, 30, 15, 15. So 40% payroll, 30% operating, 15 tax, and 15 profit. These are benchmarks. These are going to shift and change for different people. You should check with your CPA and financial advisor to get your appropriate tax percentage. This is going to be based on the structure of your business, your household income. So real important there. And also the type of business that you're operating. If you are, doing a lot of specialty anti-aging facials versus, permanent makeup, your profit margin is going to be significantly different on those two things. So you may be able to have a 20% operating or 20% profit and 25% operating or something along those lines, but use those as benchmarks. So,
and an important thing about the percentages as well, if I can add to that, is those percentages are going to be your goal target percentages. So you want to have what your goals are, but you also need to understand where you're at today. So if you're at like a 5% profit, you can't just start with a 15% profit overnight without understanding what changes you're making in the business that's going to get you to 15%. So you might need projects, strategy, time to put initiatives into place to help shift your percentages towards your goal percentages. But starting where you're at is going to be great for you to just get a system in place, start monitoring your profit and connecting it to the different initiatives that you're doing in your business.
Yeah, that's super important. And have grace with yourself. Don't judge yourself. It's, you are the version of you that is looking into this is the version of you that can help get you to that next level. And so if you are just taking the step to say, all right, maybe I am at a 5% profit margin, and maybe my payroll is out of control. And maybe I've had people that were at 70% payroll. And so it's like, okay, that's what it is. I'm not judging myself. This is the situation. And now I get to choose what I do next. And so what I do next, maybe my goal is to just in a month get to a 6% profit margin, and maybe then go up. And look, all businesses deal with shifts in profit. We've dealt with it. Lots of businesses deal with it. If you're in business long enough, there's going to be moments that your profit margins, that your payroll, all of these things are going to shift and change. What I care about is that the changes are made from a conscious place, can be intentional. You can say, you know what? I'm going to have a baby this year. And so my payroll is going to go to 50%. And I'm totally fine with that because I'm going to have more time. Or, you know what? I'm going to really accelerate growth. And so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And here's what my percentages are going to be. If you are strategically making a choice, that's fine. There's always risk associated with everything, but it still is a way to go. So, Nicole, we figure out any advice on how are we figuring out where we're at? How do we understand those percentages? Is that from your financial statements from your CPA? Are we seeing that in YNAB? How are we calculating that?
Yeah, I think a good place to start is your financial statements and using those numbers to calculate some percentages. But you can also get that data from YNAB once you've been tracking in there for a couple months. But whenever you're looking at these metrics, it's important to look at a couple different timeframes. Maybe you look at all of last year, but we're pretty far into, this year. So you're going to want to look at this year, how things are going, maybe the last couple months individually. It's important to look at these things at different timeframes and compare them to see where you're at. And that'll give you a better understanding.
It's especially important with payroll because you may have a month that you're at 30%. You may have a month that you're at 60%.
Yep.
But over the course of the year, what is that payroll percentage averaging out to be?
And that's the first place to really start with paying yourself, right? Is to understand what your payroll percentage is, that you're included in that payroll percentage. And, if you can afford to increase your payroll there to pay up to that 40% target that we have. Or if we need to, the owners have a different option of taking profit draws out of that profit account, which is the whole point of getting that profit percentage up, is that, profit first rules is that half of that profit percentage can go back to the owner as a profit draw, because the risk of the business is on you. And if your business is successful, you as the owner should share in that profit and are deserving of it.
Yeah. And I think it's also a really great way to build up your business savings. And so if say we get up to a 10% profit, and if you're an S Corp, you're likely a W-2 employee of your company as well. Your CPA will let you know that you should be paying yourself a reasonable salary, and they can give you a determination of what that reasonable salary should be. And that W-2 salary does get included in your 40% payroll. Your profit draw does not. So let's say that you're paying yourself $30,000 as a W-2 employee over the course as a salary over the course of the year. And then that can be taxed. That goes through your 40% payroll, all of those types of things. And let's say, your profit percentage, whatever it is, maybe you have $20,000 in your profit account over the course of the year. The half of that would go into your business savings, and the other half would be additional pay on top of your W-2. And so it's challenging to know exactly what you're going to make. I mean, you can predict it if you're hitting your goals. But this has been kind of a wonky year. It's one of those years.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like, okay, this is what we've set out to do, but here's where we're actually at. And I'm still paying myself in accordance with where we're actually at.
Yeah, it's really actually fun to sit down with someone as they have worked on their profit percentage, they've gotten it up, and you can sit down with just a simple Excel spreadsheet and kind of project out, if you hit this profit percentage all year at your revenue levels, this is what you could take as a profit draw for the year. And like, what would that do for your family and for you? And what could you do with that money? What will you do with that money? I think that can be really motivating as an owner of, bringing it back to why you're working on this, why you want to get profit up. There's other great reasons for just having a healthy business and healthy cash flow, but it can feel really motivating, I think, just to see that like you get to directly share in the reward of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a really important piece too. And I talk about this a lot when we get into planning for the next year, which we'll start talking about very soon. But it's, why do you want to make that money? And really knowing, like, are you in your forever house? Are your kids going to private school? Do you need a new car? Is there any type of bucket list life items that you want to go on? What's your retirement plan? Really understanding and talking with a financial advisor, talking with your CPA, saying, how much money do I need to make to hit these life goals? And so then tying that back to, here's what needs to happen in my business to be able to slowly work towards those goals. And I think that gives more of a push. I mean, it depends on the type of person. Some of us out there, like, I don't know if it was ego or what, but I needed to hit $1 million. It was like, this will happen. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, now what?
Now what?
Now what?
That's okay, but it kept you motivated to grow your business. And then you set another goal, and That's goal setting for you, and I think a lot of people, will, they feel can looking back and feeling really good about the progress you make financially or otherwise is another really important piece of this, because we're always looking forward at the next thing or seeing what else we aren't doing. We're not at 15% profit yet. And really, I always have to remind people, yeah, but where did you start? Like, let's look backwards for just 1 minute. I'm glad you're looking forward and planning and growing, but let's look backward 1 minute and say, like, look at what your profit was. Look at what maybe your debt was and your payroll. Like, look at all the changes you've made and how far you've come. And like celebrating that progress is so important as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we're looking at cash flow. We're really kind of understanding where we're at. We're understanding how much we can pay ourselves and still keep the business healthy. Let's talk about some of the, you mentioned, let's get off the expense roller coaster ride. And we had talked about, all right, how can we even out these expenses? How can we look through? And we talked about in an earlier episode, like, what do we need? What is like combing through and really understanding like what we're not going to waste money on, like using the things. When you're using YNAB and you're looking at those individual transactions, it's a lot easier to filter through and understand, I don't actually need this software, or I don't actually need this, or am I spending this much on Amazon?
Exactly. It just forces you. It's just like a positive side effect of having a system like this is you will get frustrated with yourself if you're like, if I have to categorize this transaction one more time for the subscription I haven't used in 6 months, it's like that frustration, that motivating factor to just go cancel it. Whereas if you don't have any sort of cash flow system, it can easily get buried in credit card statements or wherever it is, and you have no idea.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just a really great side effect of using a system like this. And as far as like the expenses and keeping an eye on them and smoothing them out into monthly expenses, well, while Profit First is kind of our high level strategic overview of like what's going on in the business and the strategy there, we also have to manage the day to day and like the nitty gritty of what's going on. And so we execute kind of Profit First by getting into the nitty gritty. And that's going to be the expense management. It's going to be canceling stuff we don't need, like we talked about on the last podcast episode. It's going to be like having confidence that you have enough money in your account for the rest of the month so you can take that extra draw or whatever it might be. So having a system to manage all those daily things, so you feel confident in what you're taking for yourself at the end of the day, or, whatever else you might decide to do with that cash, but you know what's needed to run the business. You're keeping an eye on it. It's optimized, it's clean, and, you have peace of mind.
I want to also add that this is something that you can utilize for saving as well. So it doesn't have to be just an expense. I know this year for me, one of the priorities is building up our savings account to a new number that I'm wanting to hit. And so we were able to set a target. So it's like just like a monthly bill, but it's just being moved into the savings account. So that's another way that you can make sure, again, that you are being strategic in hitting those numbers. Taxes, it's a great way. Those taxes will come and get you. And so saving every single month, so you're never surprised. And I really, that's another great point is, I have always been like, I always get my annual taxes done, but then your quarterlies for the next year are due at the same time. And so making sure that you're saving that little bit extra, giving yourself that buffer so that tax season doesn't have to be a stress. It's there. The money's there. You have already like taken that out. You're not surprised. That was such a peace of mind for me when I started just pulling the tax. And that is a separate account that I keep. I don't have 5 accounts, but the tax account, it's like, that's out. That's going there. That's not mine. I can't touch it.
And and we didn't touch on this with the different accounts. So I will just say that different people's brains do work differently. Like while I love doing Profit First in YNAB and Daniela does mostly profit first in YNAB with not having all the different accounts. Some people choose to do it that way because that's how their brain works, and that's okay. We are all about like, this is the way we like it, but also like you can shift it around slightly and make it work for you. The system will still work. Part of this is recognizing how your brain works with the numbers and the money, and it's okay to create your system to work around, how your brain will work and how you will engage with it. It does me no good to like tell you this is the only way to do it, and it just doesn't jive with you. And so you're never going to use the system or the tools. That's not what I want. I want you to
benefit. Yeah.
Yes. I want you to set up something that's sustainable, that's easy to use, that you're going to engage with for a long period of time, and find that it's, not that difficult once you get over the learning curve of it.
Yeah. And that was, I know for me, having you, we worked together on, was it like every other week? Or I felt like I was talking to you a lot. I really needed your support for the first, it was almost a year, I feel like, that we were kind of going through, and I was really learning and understanding, and then I finally got it. And then it was like, okay, now I just need your help as the month changes over, and all of those sorts of things. But you have to for something to actually benefit you, you have to build the system in the way that makes sense in your brain. Systems don't work there's no point if you're not actually going to use them. They're not going to save you time. They're not going to save you money. They're not going to benefit you in any way if you create this whole system and never go through with it. So I think that's your main point there. That's very, very important. All right. So we kind of talked about there's not the need for the multiple bank accounts. It's really focused on that. Some ways that you can increase your pay is by taking the profit percentage in addition to the W-2 pay and filling up the 40% payroll bucket. If you don't have any other employees, making sure that you're kind of increasing your salary to get up to that point. Anything else for those that are interested in, what's coming up? I know you've worked with so many spa owners. What are the main questions that come up when they're first starting to kind of manage these things in YNAB?
I think mindset comes to play. If someone feels like they're too worried to pay themselves more, but when I look at the numbers, it's like, no, you can. I kind of give them the green light. It's like there's something else going on there where they're not feeling deserving or worthy, or they're not confident in the system yet to trust that there's enough money in there to run the business. And so if that's you, I would say that you're not alone, and you can start to get over some of those like mindset blocks by continuing to engage in the system and the numbers, to feel that confidence and to take really baby steps. If you're working on to get yourself on payroll, you can start really small and then, set up increments where you're checking in to like give yourself raises. But at least you're giving yourself something, you're engaging with it. You're doing increases over time. You're engaging with the process is so important. But just being aware if there's, a bit of money mindset blocks, really a lot of that comes up with paying yourself through the business.
Yeah, that was me. That was for sure me. I was squirreling away money, and I was like, the business won't make it if I pull money out. And I think there's that person. And then there's also, there's another person that legitimately does not have the money there. And that person you can still solve that problem. There's lots of things that you can do. Everything is possible. We just have to look at how can we restructure, how can we shift, how can we change, what expenses can we do? And they're two different problems, but they're both completely solvable.
Well, that's why I love doing this work within a container like Growth Factor, because if I get someone like that, where it's like, well, there is no money, there's other business stuff going on there, then within the same program, they can work on that business stuff to get their numbers better with the other tools that we have within the program, like while they're working on the finances at the same time, right? So we can use the numbers to guide, like, hey, you might need to go look at this other tool and do some work here to get your payroll under control, and then come back and, we'll reevaluate your profit first percentages. So we can kind of tie that work to other areas of the program, which I think makes it unique.
Yes. So important. So whatever type of person you are, really sit with yourself, try and be self-aware, try and understand, like, what is it that is blocking me from reviewing the numbers, that's blocking me from taking action on the numbers, that's blocking me, or just from going deeper with it. I think it's really important to first understand where you're at and what the primary issue is. I guarantee you, somebody listening right now has not looked at their numbers for the entire year. And so my challenge to you is build up the courage and go and do it now. There's still time left in this year. We are moving right into busy season. We are moving into peel season, event season, all of those things. There's lots of time to figure out what to do next with those numbers. And you can be pleasantly surprised, or you can still have time to turn things around in your business. But you can't do anything until you know what it is. It's such an important piece. Nicole, anything else you want to add?
Nope, you summed it up great there. Just start engaging with the numbers and take it one step at a time.
Very good. All right, my friends, that is your challenge. Thank you for joining us on Financial Month, and do it for yourself.